So good.
Hola,
So yeah, I love poetry.
Police, my brother has it. He was speaking about it. Calm down, but let's finish the conversation about
Shall we start this lecture?
Yes.
Good. So as you may have guessed already, we are going to speak about Ajax today. Okay, so we are reaching the end of our Toolbox, IT Toolbox module. So we had already completed the IT fundamentals during the first teaching block. We completed recently making things, and this week we are going to finish off with web prototyping, which means that you will have all the tools and techniques for the assignment, which is due in 1 month. Yeah. So the next 2 lectures will be part of the web of data and opportunities. So they will not be very technical lectures, which may be good or bad depending on people. Okay. First of all, we need to see how to organize these lectures, because unfortunately we cannot give the lecture next week. So we were thinking about doing 19th and 26th of March. Is there any issue with that? No? So it will be Thursday at 4 p.m. and in any case it will be filmed as usual. So, and that will be given by our head of school, someone who is very knowledgeable on the topic. And so I will post that on as an announcement so that everybody will be aware of that. So as you know, we have an important deadline coming, so that's the 2nd of April.
Sorry. Go.
which is this web prototyping coursework. So I hope that many of you have already started it. And so at the end of this lecture, we'll spend a bit of time to go back on the requirements about this coursework and any question you may already have. I'm sure you have plenty. Okay, so a bit of feedback regarding the activities. As you can see, the curve is not great. Every week we have fewer submissions. I've highlighted some red dots. Okay, so that's the submissions for, I would call, the most technical activities. So that was, the first drop was the PHP activity. Then we had one when we had to build an app, one when we had to do some image processing, let's call it that way. And the last one is about MySQL. Okay. So it's a bit worrying because that's the type of skills you really need for the coursework. Okay. So it looks like, in average we have around 140 submissions, and for those type of activities it's more 110, okay, which is not great. So generally the trend is not good, so I don't know if you are getting tired or if your brain cannot anymore. 120 students have passed, which is good for those 120, so they can relax a little bit. But it means that around 80 are still struggling to get there. And some of you are already in the danger zone that basically you have to get full mark for everything left, otherwise you will fail the module.
No way.
So again, we have this important piece of coursework which is worth 20%. And it's really, I think, the piece of work which will show and discriminate between students who have been doing okay, always submitting the work, completing satisfactory pieces of work, and the people who have really mastered the class, mastered the techniques, and will be able to deliver an exciting product by the 2nd of April. Again, this piece of coursework, it's not just you on your own. It has been designed thinking that you will take support and get support from your mentor. Okay, so if you find it difficult on your own, it's normal. It should be difficult because it was designed for you to have challenges and be able to overtake them through the help of a mentor. So if you are not using your mentor and you find it difficult, somehow it's your fault. Okay, so let's start with the topic of this lecture. So AJAX for asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So we have 3 interesting words that we are going to define today. So basically, AJAX is just an acronym based on asynchronous JavaScript and XML. So first there is the concept of something being asynchronous. Okay, so it means that things are not happening at the same time. You may be doing a request and you don't have to wait for the answer before doing something else. Okay, so that's asynchronous type of communication. Okay, when you are on the phone with someone, you listen to someone speaking. When they stop, it's your turn. Okay, in principle. When you are sending emails, you are sending an email and you are not waiting for the answer. You go on with your life, and at some point in the future, hopefully, you will get an answer to your email. Okay? So that's a type of asynchronous communication. So it's very important when you are using your website, because we have already seen the PHP model. Okay, you are connecting to a website. The PHP information is sent to a server. It's being processed there. Some HTML is returned to you. And if you want to reload the page, the whole process has to go on again. So that's a synchronous process. Okay. Each time you have to wait for the server to do all the processing before you can get access to your page again. Yeah. The power of the Ajax framework is that you don't have to do that. So Ajax is not one technology. Okay, it's not a programming language. It's a web development method or framework. So it was designed to improve interactivity on a website. As we said, you don't have to wait for a server to reload all the information. You can go on, carry on, and when the information is available, it will just appear on the page. So generally, the experience is much better for the user. So let's have a look at a typical Ajax application. So they have all used Google Maps. Yeah. So Google Maps was implemented using the Ajax framework, which is quite a neat application. So you have your web page, and this part is Ajax based. Okay. It happens that the connection is so good that it looks that it's instantaneous. Okay, my connection, I can do things and I get the answer without any wait. But if you have less bandwidth, you may have to wait a bit until the page, the map is refreshed. Okay. However, you can still navigate within your web page during that time. It's not a reload of the whole page. It's only this box where Ajax is running. Okay. And we have seen the PHP framework for creating web pages. There's an alternative which is called ASP.NET, and no point for the person guessing which big company is behind it. So it's Microsoft, so they like to have their alternative system. But it's another professional system which is equivalent, let's say, to PHP. So in this specific web page, this British Museum web page, they are using that framework. Okay, another thing which is quite interesting and that was not around, I think, 5 years ago, is this application that when you are looking for, you are searching for something, you can start entering a few letters and you will have some suggestions. Okay. So here it's a travel agency website. If I start entering letters, I have some interesting options. So where would you like to go? Rio de Janeiro or Richmond, Greater London? It's a nice place, Richmond.
It's not funny, it is.
No, it's really nice. Anybody from Richmond?
Yeah.
Yeah? No, arguably it's even better than Kingston. A bit posher, definitely posher.
Old people. They all have dogs.
They all have, yeah, it's true, they all have dogs, they're all old.
I think, is it Mick Jagger who lives there? I think Mick Jagger has a small house there. Okay, so we could choose between Richmond and Rio.
Now let's go Brazil.
Yeah, let's go to Brazil. We need some dates.
Some sun.
So we are just running after the lecture and just going for the weekend. And here are some fantastic options. So you see, if you didn't know what to do for the weekend, thanks to IT Toolbox, you know that you can get some very cheap hotel in Rio de Janeiro. Okay, so what I'm really interested in is this functionality, okay? Entering a few letters, and like magic, you have some options coming, okay? So it's very nice for the user experience. You don't have to type everything. You may have some ideas coming. And that's also, it's part of, it's done using a framework using Ajax. Actually, they use Ajax and PHP. Okay, so it looks simple, but there's quite a bit of code behind it. And that will be one of the aspects of the this week activities to look at it and how it's done, and potentially maybe implement it on your website or the website you will be presenting on the 2nd of April. Because that's quite a nice, neat application. And I would regard that as being a first-class type of functionality within the scope of this assignment. Okay. So obviously this functionality has been made very popular using on Google and Amazon, but now everybody is just using it, so you should use it as well. Okay, so as I said, Ajax is a framework, so it's bringing together a set of technologies. It's mainly two technologies, which is JavaScript and XML, but actually you can add a bit of HTML and CSS as well. And it's compatible with PHP, so if you want, you can use everything you have learned during this course. So the idea is that JavaScript, which is a programming language, another programming language, is going to deal with all the events. Okay, JavaScript is is inside your browser. It's not on a server far away like the PHP engine. Okay, and JavaScript will be monitoring what's happening. Okay, dealing with your clicks, what you are doing, and also dealing with the request that you have done to a server far away. Has it been completed? If it has been completed, it's going to bring the data and put it in the part of your browser which is dedicated to this Ajax function. Okay, and so JavaScript is handling all this client side of your interaction. What is very important is an object which is called XML HTTP request, okay, and that will be dealing with the exchange of data between your browser and the server, which is going to do some processing. Okay. So historically, this object was part of Internet Explorer. So, not sometimes Microsoft have some good ideas which spread to everybody, and as I said, everybody now is using that object. And so JavaScript is for doing this kind of complex handling of events, and XML will be dealing more with the objects, the data you will be transmitting. So let's look again at this client-server architecture. So your browser, any browser, will have a JavaScript processor. Okay? It's not far away on a web server, it's in your browser. Okay? So it means that some calculations can be done in your browser if you are writing them in JavaScript. It's in opposition to PHP, where your browser doesn't understand PHP, so the web server is taking the PHP information, a PHP preprocessor is going to process it and format it into an HTML format and send it back to you. Okay? And your browser obviously understands HTML. But as we can see, it's a synchronous system. You have to wait for the server, the remote server, to do all the calculations to access the data in order to get access to a web page. In the other case, you have on your web page, you have the part which is dealt with by JavaScript, and JavaScript is going to do some work in the background. And when the new data is available, it will just appear. Okay? But you don't have to wait, you have your web page already. Okay. So how do we use Ajax? So generally you are going to use JavaScript with this XML HTTP request object, so that thanks to that you will get this interaction between your browser and a server. And initially your browser is going to do a request, so JavaScript is going to send that request to that server, and then JavaScript will be waiting for the outcome of this request. Okay. And so the server is going to process that request, and maybe the processing of this request will involve some PHP. Okay, because we have seen that PHP is very good. It's a good programming language, and as well, it has very good interconnection with databases. So possibly, all those calculations are going to be done on the server. And once they are ready, JavaScript is going to use the XML HTTP request in order to recover the data. And as I said, automatically this new data appear on your web page in a very smooth manner. You will not notice it. Nothing is interrupted by the arrival of those data. So somehow you are refreshing your web page within refreshing the whole web page, just the Ajax area. So generally, Ajax is on the client side. Okay, it's the front end in your browser, and you will have some application written in JavaScript. At the back end, it's dealing with moving the data around, but there is no reason why you couldn't have some processing at the back end as well using JavaScript, because JavaScript is also quite a good programming language, which can do quite a lot. But very often you are going to use some other type of technology. We already mentioned PHP, but some people will use Ruby, Perl, and so on, depending on the task to be performed. And yeah, as we have said, JavaScript mainly is used for responding and displaying. And generally, the interaction is done using XML. Okay? But it doesn't need to be. You can also interact using sending just text files. So JavaScript is a scripting language. So scripting language means it's a simple language. Okay, it's not as complex, as complete as something like Java, C++, C#. Okay, generally it's a language which is a bit limited. It's also an interpreted language, which means that there is no need of compiling it. Okay, you write a line in JavaScript, and it's going to execute that line and move to the next line. Okay, and if there is an error in one line, it will stop at that point. While other languages like C, C++, C#, you need to compile. Ajax, Java, it's not really compiling, but in this scope is quite similar. It's going to look at the globality of your code, detect any error in your code, and if everything is going to be well, it's going to be packaging that, which can be executed. Okay, so that's the main difference between interpreted and compiled languages. So usually compiled languages are much faster because all the hard work of converting your code into something which can be understood by the machine is done before execution. If you have an interpreted language, it's at the moment that it's reading the line that it's converting it into a code that the machine can understand. So it's much slower. Okay. On the other hand, an interpreted language is maybe easier for prototyping. Okay, you don't need to write a whole code, just write one line, test it, so you get the answers very quickly. Okay, so there are pros and cons in the two forms of types of programming languages. So as I said, a script has to be interpreted by an application. You don't need to compile, and you don't need a whole development environment, setup, libraries, and all that stuff. Okay. Since you don't need to compile, your code is platform independent. Okay. Your browser is going to process it wherever your browser is. Okay. And as I said, it's not as powerful. It's much slower. And also, you don't have all possible functionality in a scripted language. Usually, scripted languages are very focused towards one type of application. Okay. Whereas compiled languages usually can be used for anything. Some are better suited for certain tasks or others, but in principle, whatever the task, compiled language will be able to manage it. So we have already seen PHP as an example of scripting language, but that's a scripting language which is executed on the server side, whereas JavaScript will be executed in your browser, so on the client side. So basically, JavaScript was the first web scripting language, and it was developed by Netscape, which was a browser which was high in the end of the 90s. Now I think it has virtually disappeared. When you look at the codes, it looks a bit like Java and C++. Okay. On the other hand, it's a simpler version, and it's more flexible. You don't have all these different type of variables that you can have in a full features language. Something which is a bit disturbing is that in JavaScript there is a word Java. Okay, so many people are confused, thinking that JavaScript maybe is a subset of Java, or that there is a very close relationship between the two, actually they have nothing in common. Okay, it's just bad luck that their names look similar. Okay. You remember when we looked at PHP and we look at, let's look at the source code of that web page, which is something that I hope you do often to learn about interesting features you see on web pages. If it's a web page which is written in PHP, unfortunately the web page you are looking at has been converted into HTML. So you look at the source code, it's just pure HTML, nothing very interesting to learn from that. Okay. On the other hand, JavaScript is not interpreted on a server by your browser. So if you look at the source code, you will have your whole JavaScript source code. Okay. So it's great because you can learn a lot. You can get ideas from what you are seeing. You can reuse things. But obviously, you are losing in secrecy. If you came up with a great algorithm which allows to do something that nobody else could do, you put it on you create a web page using it, anybody can copy it. Okay? So there are pros and cons. Since it's executed on your machine, okay, there is a risk that it could take advantage of some of the resources of your machine. Okay? Or maybe write on your disk, read from your disk, leave some data you don't want, some viruses and stuff, in principle. So in order to limit that, okay, there's the rule that with a code written in JavaScript, you cannot access the hard drive. Okay. If you want some data, you need to get them from a server. You cannot use data which are stored locally. So that's for the safety. It's a scripting language interpreted, which means that it doesn't know anything about the machine where it's going to be executed. Okay? So you cannot say, yeah, I'm writing this great code which is going to take advantage of the fact that this machine has 8 cores, these fantastic graphic cards, and so on. No, you cannot do that. Okay? JavaScript doesn't know about your machine, so all machines are seen as equal. So it's another limitation, which means that you cannot take advantage of the full power of a machine. So if, again, processing time is a big issue for you, JavaScript is not going to be the solution. And you will need to think of something like C++, C#, Java. Again, it's not fully featured. Okay? Many types of functions that you will find in other languages are not there in JavaScript. So if you want to create a whole system in JavaScript, it's unlikely it will be possible. Okay? Usually JavaScript is limited to very specific tasks. Communication with a server and some basic calculations that you will do in your browser. Okay, so now let's look at how to use JavaScript, because some of you may want to use it by the 2nd of April. So basically you can embed some JavaScript code inside your HTML.
We've done that already.
Have you done that already?
Yeah, all the JavaScript you've been talking about.
Programming one, we did that.
Yeah,
Done it in Java.
I thought you're gonna talk just a tiny bit, so I prefer to.
Okay, so I can go through that.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can do that.
I think everyone.
Yeah, I was going to say that it has it.
Yeah, we've done it programming one as well. So.
Okay, good. XML?
No, we haven't done.
You don't know about XML? Okay, so So I had only two slides on JavaScript. So XML stands for Extensible Markup Language. Do you know any markup language?
Oh yeah.
Yeah?
HTML.
HTML is a very good example. So basically, XML looks a lot like HTML. And actually, the latest version of HTML are built using XML. Okay. And an XML document has that kind of format. So you have those tags. Okay. You have a begin tag and a close tag with that slash. And I mean, it has a format which is very similar to what you are using in basically HTML. The beauty of XML is that you are the one who decides what is inside the tags. Okay? You are creating the structure you want, the structure you are interested in. And there are a lot of tools that you can download that will know how to read your XML files. You just have to give it the architecture. Okay? Here is an XML file, and the structure of the XML file is, I have something which is called note, which has 3 fields, to, from, and body. Okay? And then you can pass any XML files following those constraints, and you can extract all the data almost automatically. So that's the beauty of XML. That you have a lot of tools which allow you to manipulate that. So that's why in the Ajax framework, JavaScript is basically working with XML. That's the preferred format for exchanging data with a web server. So are you familiar with that? No? In your JavaScript? So that's HTML page with some JavaScript which is embedded within your HTML page. So it's embedded and you are using the word script, the tag script, for saying this bit in my code is JavaScript. Okay, and what you are going to do, for example, in these, is that you are going to extract data from a file called node.xml. Okay, so this file is on a server somewhere. So you are going to use that object, XML HTTP. You are going to get access to those data. You are going to receive them. You send the request, and then you are waiting basically for the answer. Okay. Again, it's
What's the? Do you know what does the first line do? The open get node XML port.
Yeah. So
you get the file from.
Yeah, but what if it's true? What's the difference?
If it's true, it goes.
It's synchronous.
You can do something else while you're.
Because in principle it's asynchronous.
Yeah.
But you may want to wait for it. Okay. Typically, if you are on a banking application, they ask for your password.
Yeah.
You want everything to freeze until they say password recognized.
So that's false.
Yeah. So that would be true or false, depending if you want to be blocked and wait.
So
that
that's
would
false
be the.
if you want to wait. If you don't want to wait, it's true.
Yeah.
That's what I want to know.
Not sure. Don't remember.
Okay.
But
I'll check it
yeah,
out.
you will find it. But it's the two options. As we have seen in PHP, you have two modes of communication. You have the get and the post. Okay. So get is simpler, faster, but has restriction about the size of the information. post is more robust, secure, and you can send as much data as you want. Okay. So you are going to wait for getting those data. Okay. And here you are going to extract those data. What you want to extract is what is the content of the two fields, from and body. Okay. So here you are going to use this command, which is going to put in your field 2 the data which has been extracted from your XML file. Okay, and you can see that here when you are extracting data, your XML is done through a whole hierarchy, so you know exactly what you want.
Access
Can
specifically.
you give a class?
Excuse me?
Can you give a class as well, or an ID
An
in
ID.
your XML?
I mean, an XML file will be a set of records
So you cannot give a class.
which have all the same format. And what you are going to extract is some specific records according to the hierarchy. So here I'm going to 0, so it means I want the first record in the file. Okay? And then I want to go in, I want the child of 2. Okay? And the child is 0 because here the hierarchy is flat. So you are going to extract those data which are in XML format using those 3 lines. And then your web page is going to display this information once it's ready. Okay? But you don't need to wait. When it's ready, it will just appear. So the key object for this communication is this XML HTTP request. It has different formats depending on the browser you are using. So if you are using modern browsers, you will use this line. I mean modern Explorer. If you are using the others, you will use the other line. Okay. So typically, any Ajax code will start with this list of lines, which is going to say, okay, what kind of browser I have? Okay. If I recognize the type, I will say, okay, I will initialize this object one way or not. Okay, so here we are back to these 3 important commands. Open, so method is it get, is it post, the URL where your data are, and then this tag, do we want to be asynchronous or not? Okay. So by default, you are asynchronous. Okay. Logical because Ajax is A for asynchronous. Yeah. Then you will send the content, so depending on post or get, you will use one way or another, and then you will be waiting for the answer. So here we have a whole a piece of code that I've produced. So as usual, it's all about design, look, you know, being cool. So here is my interactive web page. So I have an exciting question. Which planet has a ring? I have a nice button. I click on it and I get the answer. Okay. That's basic interaction. But it's using the full Ajax framework to do that. Okay. So it's not very exciting, it's not very showing off. But it demonstrates that I have understood the basics of Ajax, which means basics of JavaScript, basic of XML, potentially, and also that I am able to embed that in some HTML. Okay? Which means that if I had to submit an assignment by the 2nd of April, and I'm going to show that, which is not exciting, it's already pretty good. Okay? Technically, it's quite advanced. Okay? It's not pure HTML, it's not CSS. I'm using a complex framework. Okay? So I'm just giving you some hints about what I'm expecting next month. I'm not exciting a fantastic website that looks professional. I just want you to show off specific techniques. Okay? If it looks professional, you get some extra points, but not many. Yeah. Okay. So again, if you are here, we have the full code. What exciting do we have in this code? So here I have some HTML. That's the body of my code. And I'm just saying that I'm putting a submit button. Okay. And associated to this submit button, I have a go function. So as soon as I press the button, I am going to call this JavaScript function. Okay. So this JavaScript is going to be executed. It's going to
I need toilet. I need toilet.
So this JavaScript is going to retrieve the information that there is in that file. For this exchange of data, I'm calling this function, which is going to check if the information has arrived or not. Okay. So obviously everything is asynchronous, but JavaScript is listening in the background. Is the information coming? Okay. And when it's arrived, then I display the content of that file. So here it's where I'm listening for the result of my request. And you have several different types of tags. Okay, so that was just a brief introduction, as you know, about Ajax, a bit of XML, a bit of JavaScript, how it's coming together. Okay, so in this course, we are not going to make professional Ajax developers, but hopefully you will have understood the main concepts, and you will be able to add a little bit of Ajax in your website to show off that you have acquired that type of technology. So in order for you to investigate a bit more about Ajax, obviously I'm putting in a quiz with some technical questions so that you can do a bit of research. And I will ask you to study a couple of JavaScripts that I've written myself. So there is this one. I can start writing stuff, and it's offering suggestions. In this case, it's female first names. Okay. So I'm going to provide you the source code, which is used for that, and I will have some specific questions to see if you are understanding that source code. Okay. Again, I don't need you to understand every single line. Okay. I want you to have a global understanding of that and be able to, let's say, edit it if you wanted to use it for a similar applications but slightly different. Okay. So you are not becoming instantaneously great Ajax professionals, but if I give you some Ajax code, you will know more or less your way around it, and you will be able to use it for one of your applications if the changes are limited. So apart from that great web page, that I am asking you to study. There is another one, which is that one that you have already seen. And so I will ask you to modify that, that code in order to create something similar but different. Okay? So that's the end of this specific lecture about Ajax. So now what I would like to do, if you don't have any question, is to speak a bit more about this web prototyping coursework. So feel free to interrupt, ask questions. I mean, it's supposed to be an interactive session so that you get the most of it and so that you submit something exciting, interesting, which will be worth a good mark by the 2nd of April. So what I would like in this coursework is a website with dynamic web pages. Okay? The important word is dynamic. Maybe the S in web pages is not that important. Maybe one web page where you are putting all together, I will be happy with it and you will get maximum mark. It's possible. Okay? Maybe it will be a bit confusing, but it's an interesting challenge. I want you to write from scratch. Okay? I want you to use a text editor and to type every single character. Okay? That's the general idea. I don't want you to use WordPress or whatever great tool which is around. Okay? Those tools are fantastic. A few clicks and you are going to create something maybe looking very professional, very useful, but that doesn't demonstrate any technical skills. Okay? Any teenager who is good with computers will be able to use WordPress. Okay? If you can use Facebook, you can use WordPress. So, and you are not going to get points because you can use Facebook. Okay? So I would like every single line to be written by you. Okay? If you are using code which is not written by you, it's okay if you tell me so. Okay? You say, okay, I wanted to build this great application and I needed a piece of code doing that. I had no idea how to do it, so I got it legally from a website. Okay? And we are using it. Okay? Which is good.
You can just say it in the comments, right? This is.
Yeah. You put in the comments, you give me the link. You know, you don't pretend you understand what is inside. And that's great, you know. If I prefer your code plus something which has been borrowed than just the same code without the borrowed part. Because when you borrow something, you need to have some basic understanding about what's happening. You need to integrate it within your code, so it demonstrates more technical skill than not doing it. However, it's better to write it yourself than to borrow it. Yeah. So, but the principle is you write yourself every single line of code. Okay. I would say that between 2 and 5 web pages would be enough. Okay, we are not asking a complete website doing fantastic stuff. In 2-5 pages, you should be able to demonstrate your skills. Okay, demonstrate your CSS. So maybe you are going to use one web page with one CSS, another one with another CSS, which is very ugly design. Okay. But which demonstrates that you understand how to do it. Okay? You will need to demonstrate some HTML. So try to show, I mean, it's not very complex, but try to show a variety of tags that we haven't studied, tags which are a bit more interesting. I mean, for example, the tags for buttons, for forms, are obviously a bit more complex than just tags for headlines and lists, okay? And then try to use some PHP. When you are using your PHP, adding a bit of MySQL would be great, okay? Which demonstrate that you understand how to use MySQL, connect with a small database, and JavaScript and Ajax also are very welcome. So this website that you are going to produce is really to show off your technical skills, okay? You may be some great designers, you may be some fantastic artists, have a great sense of organization, which is good, but you are not going to get many points for that. You will get some, because honestly, if it looks great, I will give you some extra points. But it's going to be very limited, okay? You have seen my websites. They're just all horrible, ugly, okay? But you know, there is some proper technical stuff behind it, okay? So I would prefer that, something all nice and shiny with just some basic HTML. So it needs to look professional, but it's a plus. It doesn't need to be too useful, okay? If you just, I mean, all my applications are pretty useless, okay? But if it's useful, it's even better, yeah? And obviously the topic is your choice. Needs to be legal and of good taste, let's say.
One thing I noticed is you didn't write down data, do you?
Yeah, so it's included, yeah.
It's like, in Nebel, you don't have to have data.
I mean, if you use everything except database, if you use everything at a high level and not use it in MySQL, you can still have the high amount, okay? But if everything is used at a low level, better to have an extra technology which brings everything up, okay?
Can you use APIs?
APIs.
Can we make it plus 18?
I don't think so. And yeah, APIs, as I said, it's not your code.
No, it's not.
So
you don't get rich.
you do it, you add some stuff with API, you will get some small extra points for bringing stuff from outside, but you're not going to get much. Okay? It's more about writing your own code. That's what I'm interested in. I mean, basically, it's the opposite of what you are going to do in real life. Okay? In real life, you create everything with WordPress or any other content management system, and then you are adding some specific bits which are not available through those systems, because you want something very specific that doesn't exist. Okay. Here it's more the opposite. Do the most you can using your own skills, and if you need some extra help, use it. But again, you are not going to get many points, but you will get a few. Okay. The more you show off, the more you demonstrate that you are using technology, you understand stuff, the more points you will get. As I said, it's a dynamic website that I'm expecting. So if you are only using HTML and CSS, you will not have a pass mark. Okay? That's clear. I mean, you will get points, but you will not get a pass mark. You will not get 40% for it. Yeah, so dynamic, it's PHP, MySQL, JavaScript. The more advanced the technical functions, the more points you get. What is really important is your comments as well. Okay? Just producing a piece of code will not give you a maximum mark. Okay? You will see how I will be marking it, but I'm expecting some comments. Okay? I'm expecting some comments in the code but I am also expecting a description of your website. Okay, the aim of the website, what kind of functionality there is, and how you tackle each single functionality. And as I said, don't do any plagiarism. It would be silly. If you are using something which is not yours, just say it. Okay? And you will get a few points. Not many, but a few. Because understanding code from somewhere else is some type of skill. Okay, okay, so in your submission, I want the URL of a live website. Okay? I mean, how many people have sent me activities with a path which is D semicolon slash?
That's amazing. That was so funny.
I mean, you can do that, but you have to give me your computer, okay? And I will not bring it back. So I would like live, you know, I think it was second lecture, I asked you to get some domain, okay? So I would like you to put it there, okay? You will get points for that. If it's not live, first I will not access it, but you will get still some points if you describe the code and do stuff, okay? But in principle, I want a live website. I want a detailed description. So what is the purpose and what is the expected audience? Okay. What are the functionalities? So to guide me about what is the exciting stuff there is to see in your website. So you need to help me. As I said, you need to show off. Okay. Make it clear, you know. I've done that functionality using MySQL and PHP. Okay, make it very clear, so so that I will not miss a few points. So each functionality, try to provide maybe a paragraph explaining what it's about and what are the technologies you are using. So what technology, what function, what are you calling? And how your website is structured. If there are several pages, if some functions are in one file, and which is called by something which is another file, it's interesting. It's more complicated. It's more points. Okay. And if in order to explain a function, some code is needed, put the main lines of codes related to that function. Okay? And then I want an appendix with a copy of all your code. Okay? Again, make clear what code is yours, what is not yours. And also if you are editing some code, that's very important. And you need to go into the details so that I can see the added value you are adding. Okay? So if you are changing, if you download 100 lines of code, but you change 10, it's pretty good. Okay? But you have to tell me what these 10 lines are doing. Okay? So, and that should be in the technical description. Yeah? Okay. So the deadline is on the 2nd of April at midnight, and using study space as usual.
Do we need to upload like a zip file or something, or you just need to see the live website?
Yeah, I will see the live. So give me the appendix.
If it's PHP, obviously.
So you want it in a web file, obviously, because you want the whole code as well.
Yeah, so I mean, a PDF. I mean, you know, any format. If you want to do it in LaTeX, I have no problem with LaTeX. Maybe it's a bit more work, but if you want to learn about LaTeX, it's a good thing. But yeah, in principle, I would expect a Word document, at the end of the document, a copy of all your codes. Okay.
What? Really?
Yeah. I mean, as I said, I am expecting that you are writing the code yourself. Okay?
Okay.
So I'm not expecting thousands and thousands of lines.
Yeah, well, usually CSS is the one that takes up one.
Yeah, it will be a couple of pages. Yeah, well, that's okay. But yeah, I want also the web, the live website. So I will be able to check everything except the PHP there as well. Okay, so the marking scheme, 40% is really the technical complexity. Okay, so that's where the points, most of the points are, and 40% on how your description of your technical functionalities. Okay. Then I put a few points about website quality, is it a useful website, that kind of stuff. Okay, but that's only 20%. So 80% is really about technical stuff. 20% is about the look. Yeah. So
is it 20% to the module?
Yeah, the whole thing is 20% of the module. Yeah. So don't spend too much time on the look, except if you are very weak on the technical part. Do the best you can so that it looks good and it does something useful. Okay, but will not get a great mark. So I've given a detailed description of what I'm expecting for what kind of range of mark. So let's say that a bare pass, it would be, you demonstrate that you have mastered CSS and HTML, and you are adding some basic PHP inside. Okay, very basic. There is no database. There is no function. You are not any user-defined function. Just you are calling basic functions. Okay, that would give you a bare pass. Okay. Obviously, it needs to be live. If it's not live, already you are below the expectations. On the other hand, if you start writing some very complex PHP or JavaScript function, writing some, let's call them algorithms, then I will be really impressed and I will go for the A+ type of marks. So 20% is about, as I say, the look. Okay. So the website I write, for example, I think I would give them a bare pass. Okay. All the functions, all the buttons work. Looks horrible. There is no much coherence, but that's a pass in terms of website quality as seen by the user. Okay. So if everything works and you don't do anything about looking nice, you already have 40% of the 20% for the look. And then I want good description about the code you will have written. Okay. If there is no descriptions, you will just get 0 for that part. Yeah. So finally, I would like to remind you that you have mentors.
Who's my mentor? I don't have a mentor. I write solo.
So you all have mentors. If you don't know who your mentor is, just send me an email. I will tell you. In addition to the mentors, you have the SASC,
Google.
the SEC Academic Success Center. Has anybody used it?
No, never even heard of it.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
So it's on the first floor of the Subways building. Subways building.
Is it the space bar?
Space
Like on top of the space bar.
Okay, so you go to the Subways building. When you are in the first floor, main corridor, It's at the end on the right. Okay? So every day, basically, between Monday and Tuesday between 11 and 1, Wednesday and Thursday between 2 and 4, you will have people will help with programming issues. Okay? So they are not people associated to IT Toolbox. Okay? Actually, the people doing that, they are all doing a PhD in computing science. Okay? So they are excellent programmers. Usually they program with advanced languages, Java, C++, C#. Okay? They all have done a bit of JavaScript, PHP, HTML and stuff. So they are excellent programmers, and they are available for you every day for 2 hours.
Okay? Welcome.
We didn't know that.
I mean, there are signs everywhere in the buildings. So now you know. Okay. I mean, they are there for the 3 years. Okay. It's not just for first-year students. So it's first come, first serve. Okay. And come up with problems, and they will help you to solve them. So you have a lot of support. So please use it, because I would like you to get the maximum mark you can get, and you deserve. So, any question? You all know exactly what you have to do to get a good mark. So feel free to reuse some code that you produce during the activities. Okay, it's your code; it's not plagiarism. So use it, enrich it, make it more complex, and
So what does the tutor do?
hopefully you will get a great mark. So thank you very much for your attention. So there is no class next week.
I have a question. What is a tutor like? What does he do?
Who?
A tutor.
Which
Yeah, your personal tutor.
Your mentor.